I get it, and it's annoying as hell being a fan.
He should be either suspended or fired. Welcome back, everyone, to the A.D.D show, where we're not always right, but we're never wrong. As always, I'm Marc.
And I'm Hans, and welcome back, everybody. It's been, a little over a week since we heard from you guys last. We're here to do another episode. We are going to kind of keep today's episode from what me and Marc talked about kind of open. We don't really have anything on the schedule. Nothing too big happening. Obviously, if you guys hear this on Friday, we're recording on Tuesday, but we just had the All-Star event for baseball. Ohtani killing it. Trey Mancini did well. A lot of other sporting events. We have men's basketball losing in the Olympic trials. Just kind of crazy.
Just the exhibitions.
Well, I know, but still, they got to get their stuff together. And then Milwaukee brought it back to 2-1. So they finally got that win, so they didn't go down 3-0. So that's really good. But
yeah,
how you doing, man?
I knew the finals doesn't really start. No series really starts in tournament play, like a best of 7, best of 5, until somebody wins on the road. I don't think the role players all play better at home. Mm-hmm. So you really, really need to be on your A game to win on the road this time of year. And right now, I don't know if either one of them. I mean, I have more faith in the Suns to win a game on the road than I do the Bucks.
Yeah.
But I don't like the way this series is going. It hasn't been a very watchable series. All 3 games haven't really been close. You knew who was going to win almost the whole game.
Yep.
So I hope tonight is more of an exciting game. Booker really needs to start shooting better.
Yep.
But again, like some of these players, even Chris Paul, all of these players, I'm going to say all these players haven't played this much basketball in a season. None of them. Mm-hmm. None of them know what it takes. They're all tired. Giannis sat out a few games and he's playing really well. He's been dominant the last couple games, but one of those games he scored 40 and 10. They lost. One of the games they won. So I don't really think it matters what his stats are. I think all that matters is how Drew Holiday and Middleton play.
Yeah. The other player, the role players, I'm not calling them role players, but I mean the second-tier players on that team need to
They're role players.
But they need to, when I think of role players, I think of bench players. They're starters. But they have to do their job because obviously Giannis can't do it all. So if they can do their job by putting up 15, 20 points a game, it's easier. But Giannis can't put this team on his back because it kind of reminds me of like LeBron in his original few years in Cleveland was really the only player on the team and never got over that hump. And it just reminds me of that a little bit, that Giannis is doing everything, but really his teammates need to do their job as well. Yeah. And I just don't think they have quite enough still to even win it. And I would even say the same going into the season for Phoenix, but clearly they're using their players the right way and they're winning.
Yeah, it's I look at it as it's just interesting to see who's actually going to show up on the road. And that is between all the players. Like, Ayton got in foul trouble the other day. That really hurt them. But is Giannis going to play that dominant again tonight down low, or is he going to become the guy that thinks he can shoot jump shots? Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see, like you said in the opening, All-Star game tonight, 40 first-time All-Stars are in this game. That's more than half the players that are playing tonight. This is their first All-Star game. Crazy. That's awesome for baseball because you're really promoting new players. You're promoting younger players. You're getting them out there. And last night, that home run derby, it was exciting. Ohtani didn't get out of the first round, but Soto and him had an amazing first round battle, and Soto was just a monster. Alonso is a home run god. Like, that's all he does. Like, he's, I was happy,
as an
Orioles fan. I mean, think about, and I hate to bring it up, but think about where this man was last year.
With cancer,
and now he's in the All-Star game competing in the home run derby. Not only competing in the home run derby, but actually doing well in the home run derby and really getting to the finals. And he only lost. I mean, yeah, they didn't play a full round because as soon as Alonso hit the one to go past, he lost. But I mean, he hit 23 in the final round. That's really good. And as an Orioles fan, Cedric Mullins is starting tonight. He's having a really good season. So those are a couple things that I like. Ohtani's pitching tonight. Andy's DHing. So he will be pitching in the first inning, and he'll probably hit in the first inning because I think they have him batting in the top three.
He'll do one inning of pitching probably.
But Vlad Guerrero Jr. is having a really good season. His first All-Star game. Surprisingly, Tatis's first All-Star game.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is the young talent in baseball is huge. If you want my opinion, I think there's a lot of talent that's young, and I think we're starting to kind of wean out the old talent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the way I look at it too is you're not filled with a bunch of Yankees and Red Sox.
Well, yeah. And I think that it's working without even having a league-wide cap space. I think it's still working because those two teams aren't playing the best. But I do think part of it is that putting new players in the home run derby. I think there was still some players in the All-Star game that I didn't really look deeply into it. A lot of players I think were better, and I think some of the players in the All-Star game were put there because of popularity, which it is. But I think there's just a really good young talent in baseball, and I think a lot of it is like the NBA. They're just struggling trying to show it. Yeah. I think baseball's doing a better job with Tatis and these players being in video game covers and stuff like that, like talking about them a lot, even bringing up Mancini. I've seen him all over ESPN, which doesn't happen for an Orioles player, right? So you're seeing more players, staff, sportscasters talking about baseball, talking about players not named Mike Trout, talking about players not named Aaron Judge, talking about players not named Harper, and moving on from, yes, those guys are great, but now you're starting to talk about Tatis, you're talking about Acuna, which I get he's injured, but you're bringing up Shohei Ohtani, who should be talked about every minute of every day, which he is, but I've watched baseball casually my whole life, and I've never seen a player like him.
Right.
I've never seen it.
It's fun to watch. Again, I won't watch it tonight.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the home run derby. I was working.
Yeah.
But it's fun to see that there's youth that is coming through. Mm-hmm. Now, whenever you have a fan-based voting for starters, you're always going to have the popularity. You're always going to have those guys coming in. What helped out was Trout got hurt. And Yankee fans voted, but they didn't vote for everybody like they usually do, same as the Red Sox fans.
I would like to see, maybe I'm wrong, but this I think would be cool, is to see in the All-Star game you have like a starter and a reliever maybe in every position. Who's the best first baseman in the league according to stats? That's who should be playing first. And if you do, there has to be a way to do a sabermetrics of hits, runs, everything added together.
But but you need the fans involved.
Well, I know.
You need the fans involved.
Maybe there should be some sort of swayed where fans get a little bit of the vote and stats have another. Does that make some sort of way to?
Yeah,
maybe too much politics involved in that.
But then you're taking away all the fans, because basketball, football, and hockey and baseball all have fan voting.
And
for the
NASCAR does that too.
So it's, but I mean, I don't mind it. It does get a little ridiculous sometimes when you have a player
that's been injured
like
all
Cedric
year.
Mullins that's tops at the outfield position in all categories, and he wasn't even in the final voting to be a starter. And
that's kind of one of those situation I was bringing up.
So it's, can you take out the hurt player and take them out of the voting, but then you have the write-ins.
Yeah.
So people in California can just write in Trout all they want, you know, and so I get it. I get what you're saying.
There's probably no way to do it, but that's kind of what I meant. It's kind of just, you have all these young great players, and you want to showcase to the world your great players. So there's probably a kid out there that's 8 or 9 or 10 years old that's not that big into baseball, but you know what he's going to watch? The game tonight. When I first started watching football, I obviously started playing through video games, but I never really watched football. But you know what I loved watching? In Hawaii, the Pro Bowl every year. That to me was the best of the players. So I kind of mainly got in more into football, watching the Pro Bowl every year, watching the throwing competition. They used to do like ring toss. They used to do sprints. Like it was like field day, but for the NFL players. They had fun. They had Gatorade baths. It was awesome. And the All-Star game with baseball should be similar, where you might get those young fans watching for the first time, and you want to show them these are the best we got, not the famous. This is the best talent you're going to see.
Yeah,
and
you'll have that. You'll have that as the bench.
Yeah,
because the coaches and the players vote for who's who else is going to be on the
Yeah.
team, and not vote, but they pick.
Yeah.
And so that's where you'll see most of those players, and that's why I think the first few innings aren't as good as the
No.
end of the game, because the younger players or the not so popular players are out there playing, and they're there for a reason. They're not just there for the camera.
Well, the first few innings is your best 5 pitchers in the league versus the first 5 best hitters in the league, essentially, in some sort of way. So you get to the end, you start getting those lower guys. You get the pitchers that are, still all-star pitchers, but they're not in the same category as Ohtani and those guys. So,
but there was a question asked. I really don't understand. Logan said that him and his buddy, that's a Philly fan. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like me because I called Philly the dumpster fire.
They kind of are.
Yeah, they are.
I like how he doesn't like you, but I say it every week. I agree with you.
Yeah, but it's...
Can we get him on to argue this?
So, question. Will CMC have a better career than Shady McCoy?
I've read that question completely wrong.
So, it says, will CMC have a better career than Shady McCoy?
Well, let's put it this way, okay?
So, I'm going to let you talk. I'm going to look up Shady's stats.
I have them right here because I just saw the question. So,
okay.
LaShawn McCoy in 11 years has 11,102 yards total. That puts him 22nd all time. Okay?
Okay.
In perspective, that's 11 years. I just scrolled down a little bit and saw someone else's name. In a little less than the same time, 5 spots farther, is Marshawn Lynch is there. And you go a little bit farther. Let's go here, okay? I'm going to go to player 76 and 77. You have Le'Veon and Zeke a little bit farther down. Alfred Morris is down there. Todd Gurley. Yes, that's 50 spots away, but they're only 5,000 yards behind Shady McCoy. 6,000 yards.
He has 6,000 yards?
No. Zeke Elliott has 6,300, but I was saying
how many does
LaShawn
McCoy
McCoy
have?
has 11,100. So he's only 6,000.
How many touchdowns?
He has, I just had that up. Give me a second.
All right, so how many attempts, how many touchdowns?
I just had that up. Here it is right here. So in his career, he has 73 touchdowns.
Okay.
4.5 yards average per carry, 518 receptions.
Okay.
2,400 attempts.
All right, so a third of the attempts is what CMC has.
Yeah.
He has 3,100 yards, 29 touchdowns, 320 receptions for 2,600 yards.
Yeah.
16 touchdowns. He only has 6 fumbles, and he's only lost 2 of them.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm looking at Shady McCoy. How many years did he play?
Shady McCoy played 11 so far. His first year was in 2009 with Philly. His last year so far is with Tampa. His best year was 2013 with Philly. He had 1,600 yards. Well, he had 17 touchdowns in 11. So 6 years with Philly, 4 years with Buffalo, 1 year with Kansas, 1 year with Tampa Bay.
Okay, so you're looking at 3 years right now for CMC.
Yeah. Also, I will say this. I know this is kind of funny. Every year but 1, 2, 3 of his entire career, Shady McCoy's had more than 3 fumbles a year. There's a lot of fumbles.
Yeah.
He's 1 year with 5.
I'm going to... See, this is a hard question to answer because CMC was out 1 whole year. And I'm looking at it as that was sort of right after 2,000 total yards from scrimmage.
But if you think about it, how many yards does he have total in his career right now, CMC?
CMC, grand total?
Total.
So you're looking at about 5,800 total yards.
5,800. So he's almost...
That's with receiving and rushing.
But I'm assuming that's with career yardage of Shady McCoy, too. 1,100, because he has 500 receptions.
But is it 1,100 rushing yards, or is it 1,100 receiving and rushing?
Total here, rushing yards, is 1,102. His receiving yards total in his career is 5,000.
So that's 16,000. That's 16,000 total yards.
So if you do the math,
in 11 seasons.
In 11 seasons.
Okay, so now he's done 3 seasons, and he has just under 6,000.
So my guess would tell me that if the pace is on average for CMC to average even what he is, or 400 or 500 yards less per year, he'll be there in half the time. If you think about it like that, if he has 5,300 yards in 3 seasons total, times that by 3 more, that's 15,000. That's exactly what Shady has in 11 years. It would take CMC to do it in 9.
Yeah.
So be 2 years shorter. So if you ask what I would think, as long as he stays healthy and pulls this like DeMarco Murray kind of years like that, like he was doing, but stays healthy, I think CMC could easily pass as one of the top running backs of all time. I know I know, guys, you heard that. I'm saying that's early, but the numbers he has put up, if he can stay anywhere near that, dual threat wise, CMC's nasty. And Shady McCoy's nasty too. I do want to talk about that when we get done with this. I want to bring that up as well.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think it's going to be. I would rather say it's going to be equal. They're going to be, right there with each other.
Yeah.
Not one extremely much better than the other. Because, again, like recency bias, you're looking at Shady being the third running back on a team the last couple years.
But I also have to look at this, too. I don't want to interrupt you, but when CMC is healthy, he's 1,000, whereas Shady isn't 1,000. Shady's done most of his off 1,200, 1,300 rushing yards and a couple hundred yards. So if you add the amount of rushing and receiving together from CMC, total yardage, I think he'll catch Shady faster. Maybe not rushing yards total, but I think because he's dual threat, and Shady was a little dual, but not like this. That's what I mean. I think total yardage and touchdowns. You said CMC has how many already in 3 years? You just say 30?
30 what?
30. How many touchdowns total?
How many touchdowns? So 29 rushing and 16 receiving.
So almost 50. Shady McCoy's total was a little over 100.
Yeah.
So he's already halfway there in 3 years. So some numbers may not get there, like rushing totals and like what's the other one? Like targets maybe. But I think yardage wise, he's not far. I mean, he is a few years ago, but I think he's going to beat 11 years of Shady. I think some of his stats will be past Shady's by then. Okay. Maybe not total rushes. But this is the other thing I wanted to bring up. If you have nothing else to say here, I know you hate this question, so I'm about to ask it. I'm looking at numbers here and everything like this. Is LaShawn McCoy a Hall of Famer?
No.
No?
No.
The reason I ask is because I went through all-time running backs. Who's in the Hall of Fame and who's not. Now, I know this is, again, biasness. But you go down the list. Frank Gore is third all-time.
Yep.
Hall of Famer, right?
He'll make it. I don't think he'll make it.
So, 1 all the way through 16, which is Thurman Thomas, Hall of Famer. Okay.
Yeah.
17 is Fred Taylor, not in the Hall of Fame. 18 is Steven Jackson, not in the Hall of Fame. 19 is John Riggins in the Hall of Fame. 20, Corey Dillon, not in the Hall of Fame, who I think should be. 21, O.J. Simpson, Hall of Fame. And then there's LaShawn McCoy. And everybody after, there's no Hall of Famers till some people I really haven't really heard of much of. Joe Perry, I know Earl Campbell, Jim Taylor, even Larry Konsanka. I don't know who that is.
Larry Zonka.
So, but that only has 8,000 yards. But I'm saying that's 4,000 start yards less still than LaShawn McCoy. So my point is, what makes a running back a Hall of Fame running back? Because if you look at it, is it yardage? Because LaShawn McCoy is kind of there. But then you go farther down, and you're like, Marshawn Lynch is right there, only 5 spots behind. Matt Forte's right there. Ricky Williams is right there. Clinton Portis is right there.
Were you the best or tops near in the prime of your career?
And I just looked at that with LaShawn McCoy. He only had 1 year where he was the number 1 running back. And
but
2 years leading
the number 1
rushing
running back.
yards.
Yeah, but that's it. But you're looking at, Emmett wasn't the number 1 rusher, and he's the number 1 running back ever.
Yeah.
But he didn't win the rushing title every year.
No.
I look at Shady was dominant in 3-4 year span, 5 year span. And when you're looking at running backs, that's why I have to say a Joe Riggins, a Larry Zonka, players like that, they were dominant on those teams. They didn't play 11 years. They played 5.
Yeah.
Because they got the ball and all they did was run the ball with them and everything. They weren't pass catchers. They weren't, that wasn't the game. But I look at it as, the Hall of Fame is technically, if you want to get technical, the Hall of Very Good.
Yeah,
it's not the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
It's not, so should he be in? I don't think so. Will he get in? Possibly.
Yeah. I just look at some of the people ahead of him, in my opinion, with Corey Dillon, Fred Taylor, and Steven Jackson are players that
none of them should be in. None of them. And I'm a Corey Dillon. I love Corey Dillon, one of my favorite running backs to ever play the game.
If I'm looking at the players that are in the Hall of Fame and the players that aren't, I don't disagree with you. I'm looking farther down, and even as maybe Herschel Walker's not in, and I look farther down, after that, everyone I'm looking at, I don't think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And no offense to even LaShawn McCoy, he's borderline for me, but O.J. Simpson, John Riggins, Thurman Thomas, Franco Harris, Marcus Allen.
Thurman Thomas was the best dual threat running back for a long time.
I'm going through all Hall of Famers. Marcus Allen, Franco Harris, Edgerrin James, Marshall Faulk, Jim Brown, Tony Dorsett, Eric Dickerson, Bettis, Tomlinson, Curtis Martin. Peterson is right there. Also, I missed him, not in the Hall of Fame.
But he's
Sanders
still playing.
He's still playing, I know. And then Sanders, Peyton, and Smith. And you have Frank Gore and Peterson right up there. And I'd probably put both of them still in before McCoy, in my opinion. Probably because of Gore's years of longevity.
Yeah, but...
Does that get him in, though? But he hasn't really done anything. Now that I'm thinking about it, what has he really done?
He's just been there for 20 years.
Adrian Peterson has 5-6 years being that dominant duo in Minneapolis before his injuries. And even LaShawn McCoy was there. I mean, he was on a lot of good NFC East Eagles teams.
Yes.
A lot of those teams where they never really won the big one, but...
I
hated. He was one of those players I hated to see go and leave Philly because he was really talented.
Yeah, and the last 2 years he's won 2 Super Bowls.
He's probably happy.
But he hasn't really played. No. So it's like people look at that question now and it's like, oh, you're looking at Shady McCoy and the recency biases. No, he's not a Hall of Famer. But if you actually go back and look at where he was in his 4 or 5 year prime, because a running back's prime is probably their second, third year in the league,
probably
to like their 6th, 7th. But you're already looking at them. By the time they're in their 6th, 7th year, they're already on the downfall.
Yep.
So that's why like Frank Gore, I think he gets in just because of how long he's played. But this question here is funny because this is the other question Logan and his buddy were debating about, and this is just a Washington football team fan and an Eagles fan. So it's just two people saying the other team's
usually
running backs
really
better.
Bad takes. Yeah, I get it.
So it's who's going to have the better season this year, Gibson or Sanders? And I don't see a scenario where Sanders has a better season than Gibson. I personally don't. Sanders is a decent running back. He's good, but he doesn't even play most of the snaps for his team sometimes. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field. I look at Gibson I think they're going to run the ball through Gibson and have Gibson touch the ball a lot this year.
So if you want me to answer that question, sorry about the Philly fan, but he's wrong. No. Antonio Gibson's going to have a much better career. And I'm just going based on...
It's just this season.
Yeah, this season, I'm still going off recency bias. Sorry, I have to do that because... This man for Philly has been drafted top 10 running back every year since he's been in the league, since he was a rookie. He has 9 touchdowns, 800 yards each year. That's not even Antonio Gibson numbers. But I will tell you this, who I think has the opportunity to get more yardage because the offense is bad, the running back does. And I think at times Eagles, they don't have the best O-line this year, right? But I think in general he has a chance to get a lot of catches, a lot of carries because they're going to do more running with Jalen Hurts. But I think, Singletary can have more yards, but Gibson's a better running back. Sanders is what I meant to say. He's a better running back.
Yeah, I don't
see a scenario where, I keep saying Singletary, sorry, where Sanders gets more yards. I don't see it. I don't see the team getting a lot of yards in any game in general. I just don't see the offense moving the ball. Defense is still good. They still got decent defense.
But again, it's...
You got to move the ball to score touchdowns, to get yards.
I look at it as, I just don't... Where would you draft them in, say, fantasy?
10 spots apart.
Gibson's that, bottom of the...
RB1, top of the RB2.
Yeah, I'd probably say top of the RB2. Sanders is bottom RB2 to flex.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's fair. I would still take Sanders on my team if I needed a flex running back.
You got to look at offensive line. The Eagles' offensive line isn't very good.
No, and DC's line is better.
So, yeah, I go Gibson here 100%.
Plus, I think when Gibson gets the ball, I think the offense has so many weapons that Gibson's going to be another one of those weapons, whereas you play the Eagles, you only have to worry about a few people. And I wouldn't even be worried about the one-year rookie and then now the new guy.
Yeah, I think, and a part of me thinks I'm just, feeling it. I don't want to count this Eagle team out because we don't know who the players are.
Yeah.
This Eagle team could really surprise some people and, win, be close to 500, a game under.
The whole division last year was right at 500.
But I don't like Jalen at all. I don't like their wide receivers.
To me, I don't see enough veteran presence to help that team. It's just but that's not a bad thing.
But that's why you can sort of say they could surprise people.
They could.
And
Devontae Smith is nasty. Rager's good.
See, I'm sort of on the Nate train. I think Devontae's going to be a boom or bust. Like, he's going to go for a 70-yard touchdown and have 2 catches for 100 yards, and then the next week he's going to have 2 catches for a yard.
Yeah, I could see it.
He's going to be a Deshaun Jackson type or a Jeremy Maclin type.
I mean, if both of them are healthy wide receivers, I would take that.
Yeah,
I mean, both of them healthy were good players when they were healthy and utilized properly.
I mean, they can run straight. They're DK Metcalf. They can run straight.
Except DK Metcalf gets struck out in a Celebrity All-Star game.
But,
over a Disney star.
But I don't know. Like, it's been bothering me because I've been listening to a lot because coming home from work, it's CBS Sports Radio on the Fan, and they've been talking a lot about who the top quarterbacks are in the league and who the top this and that are in the league, and I'm looking at these lists, and I'm like, and some of them are, like the quarterback list that ESPN put out the other day. It was okay. The top 10 quarterbacks. It was okay. Like, I think we've gone into an era where if you're a top 5 quarterback in fantasy, then you're a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And for me, that is so just backwards because I want to see, like, as a fan, if I'm playing fantasy, yes, I'll draft a couple players that they had in the top 5. I'll take them on my team. But only one of them has proven they can win and win consistently. And yes, Rodgers has won consistently, but he doesn't get to the big game ever. Again, you have to take that into account. It's just like Drew Brees. You have to take that into account. I don't care if you're 13-3, 12-5, whatever your record is as a winning record and you make the playoffs. That's all fine and dandy. But have you made the Super Bowl? Like, I'd rather have a Tom Brady that's not, now they're ranking him in the top 3. Last year he was number 7 in the top 10, and this year he's number 3. But I would take Tom Brady and his non-technically stats and win a Super Bowl.
The hardest part for me when they do rankings is they never tell you what metric they're using. And that's what bothers me. Like, I almost wish that when they said these are a top 10 blank, it's because of this number. Are you ranking them on fantasy?
They asked all the head coaches. Yeah. They asked all the head coaches. They asked all the offensive coaches. They asked, it was like they polled the league.
Well, I'd rather than poll the league than just poll what they think from fantasy.com. My point is that's a better ranking. That's why you saw Tom Brady at 3. If you ask normal people where they ranked Brady, they put him like 9 or 10, which is ridiculous. Like, I just saw a ranking where I saw Dak at 4. And I was like, that's stupid. Why is that even a thing? Because he doesn't have anything to show he's the 4th best. Does that make sense? I'm even here arguing against some of these stats where I'm like, is that really one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the league? Like, some of the people they had there, like, no offense to Matthew Stafford, they had, I think ESPN had him at 5.
No, they didn't even have him in the top 10.
Then I'm thinking of somebody else's. It was like a Mike Cockcraft, like one of those type dudes list. It was like Matthew Stafford at 5.
I would take Matthew Stafford over majority of the quarterbacks.
I would too, but
my team.
Is he still a 5th best of all the quarterbacks? I wasn't
in the league.
Yeah.
Why not?
I have nothing against him. No. I'm not saying I have anything against him. I was surprised to see him there when he normally should be there, but they don't put him there. They had Kyler Murray at 7. How does that make any sense? He hasn't done anything. Even Dak at 7 don't make sense there. But they need to tell you what are they doing their rankings based off of. And then people can go, oh, fantasy-wise, that makes sense. Passing yards-wise, that makes sense. Or do you need a quarterback to win a Super Bowl? If you want a quarterback to win a Super Bowl, that can lead you there.
I think Brady has really ruined the way you look at it. Because, yes, Rodgers hasn't won. Now, Rodgers hasn't even made it back to the Super Bowl.
No.
And you always have to remember, Brady's made it going to the Super Bowl look like it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, in his 20-year career, he's made it half the time.
You get to cheat a few times. It helps.
And
I'm joking. Keep
but
going.
That's just so dumb because that's all anybody says, and it's the dumbest thing ever.
Do.
But that's what you do. That's what you just did. It's the dumbest thing ever.
I was joking. I'm joking.
But it's... he's made it look easy.
Yeah.
And the fact is if it used to be if you made 1 Super Bowl or you made 2, like, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, again, Eli, Eli Manning, don't like him at all, but 2 years he led his team.
Yeah.
He carried his team to the Super Bowl, and they won. Now, he's a mediocre quarterback at best, like record-wise. But in those 2 years, they were wild card teams. They weren't the number one team in the division. They weren't this. They were a wild card team, and they went through.
Yeah.
Big Ben.
In his prime.
I personally would put Big Ben above Aaron Rodgers and above Drew Brees because he's made it to more Super Bowls. He's led his team to more Super Bowls. Well, that's the thing.
When they do these rankings on any position, I'm not saying they always need to tell you what they're doing it based off of, but when you do a top 10 quarterback position, do you want to do top 10 quarterback position based off of the tickets they're selling you, the how popular they are, or are they going to get you to the promised land? Because if they're going to get you to the promised land, you want Ben, obviously his elbow now, no. You want the Matthew Staffords. I know he hasn't done it, but you want a different. These quarterbacks are different.
So you look at it. Everybody thinks Phillip Rivers is one of the best quarterbacks to play in the last few decades. Correct? Why?
I have no idea.
I'm asking that honestly because
to me, I would say probably has a lot to do with his passing yards and the fact that he wasn't really a bad quarterback.
And his win-loss record is pretty good.
Yeah.
But his win-loss record when it matters is not.
Terrible.
And you could say, oh, he had to go through, Brady. He had to go through Manning. He had to go. Okay, so did Big Ben.
Yeah.
So did Eli.
Yeah, Eli made
so
it
did and Peyton had to go through Brady. Yep. Brady had to go through Peyton.
I'm with you.
And I just look at it as how we judge these players. Like, and I'm big on it. You had to be somebody that won the big game. You had to be somebody that wasn't the reason why you lost. Yeah. And you can look at Phillip Rivers in the big games being why his team lost.
Yeah, when it comes to when I do a lot of ranking stuff too, is I don't really include people who I see that are constantly the reason their team loses games. If you're constantly the reason your team loses games, even though you have 16,000 not 16,000, I'm thinking running back, but you have, let's say, 45, 50,000 passing yards, but Phillip Rivers constantly was one of the reasons why they lost games. There's times when people are like, well, Jared Goff is a good quarterback, but multiple times he's the reason I've seen the Rams lose games.
Yeah.
And so, why do I not put them either in top rankings with me? I know they're two different age groups, but it's because you're constantly putting yourself in bad positions. Is there a lot of quarterbacks who I haven't seen do enough good or bad yet? Yeah, they're neutral right there in the middle, but you want the quarterbacks that when the game is on the line, they take over and win that game.
Yes.
But that's what makes a quarterback great, not what makes a quarterback average trending up. What makes them actually already up. That's where Tom Brady should be. People are like, well, I don't want to put him in my top 3. Why not? He is the best quarterback playing the game of football right now. Maybe Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, 1 and 2.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I look at Josh Allen. He's gotten better every year.
Way better, yeah.
Okay, so he's gotten better every year. He hasn't gotten over the hump. First year, Mahomes makes it to the AFC Championship game. They lose to Brady.
Yeah.
Okay, Brady goes on. They win the Super Bowl. All right. The next year, he goes to the Super Bowl and he wins.
Yeah.
And the year after that, he goes to the Super Bowl again, and they lose.
Yeah,
he's getting there.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that matters. And Mahomes wasn't the reason. And you can't say, "Oh, right there, Mahomes was the reason why they lost."
No,
when the Patriots lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, you didn't point at Brady and say that he's the reason why you lost.
Never did.
Like with Drew Brees. Late in the seasons, when they didn't make it to the Super Bowl, you could point at Drew Brees being why they didn't make it. He didn't make that throw that he always makes. He didn't, do what he normally does in the regular season. And that's where I judge it. I don't know. It drives me nuts. And again, I think I said a couple weeks ago, nothing in sports makes me happy. Nothing.
Yeah, no, we know.
And
you're also a Massachusetts guy, so most things don't make y'all happy in general.
But it's true though, because the way people are judged these days are based off of, in baseball, based off of how far you can hit the ball, not how often you hit the ball.
Yeah.
It's based off of how hard you throw, not where you throw.
Yeah.
To me, probably the best pitcher. Oh, I've seen some great ones. Probably the top
third
3.
Person talk with yourself there was great.
Probably a top 3 pitcher I've ever seen in my life is Greg Maddux. And he pitched maybe 92 miles an hour. But he could hit every single black part of that plate, and he owned
He'd make you chase around the plate.
You know, and it's sort of like Tony Gwynn was one of the best, if not the best hitter to ever play in the game, and he wasn't a home run hitter. All he did was hit 350, 360 every single year. And, you know, those players, like, they don't exist anymore.
No.
And, you know, in the NFL, it's the flashy guy. That's why Odell was considered the best wide receiver in the league, because he made an unbelievable catch.
Yep.
Like, it drives me nuts how we rank players and how we constantly keep bringing players up. Oh, it's the baddest man on the planet, you know, because this, that, the other thing. Baddest man on the planet has won one Super Bowl and hasn't been back.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't say that he didn't have a team behind him or
maybe
anything
part
like that.
of this goes into something you haven't said yet. Maybe only going to one and Drew Brees, and maybe it has a testament to show how hard this game really is and how much different of a league Brady's in over everyone else. He is just that special that if you can just make it to one and win one, that's a category that no one else can do. Like, let's say Patrick Mahomes never make it to another one, but he constantly wins playoff games. They just kind of lose or stalemates. Like, he did it. And I know what you're going to say, like, even with Aaron Rodgers and Brees, like, yes, they have one. That's great. But is it a testament to show fans how great Brady really is? Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's the thing. So take Brady out of it.
Yeah.
Do you, like, you're looking at it as Brady's the best one? There's no 1A, 1B conversation.
To ever play the game, it's Tom Brady.
One, okay,
yeah.
That's it. Now, Joe Montana, John Elway. You look at stats. They're not going to compare to Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to compare to Drew Brees.
We put Aikman there too. The stats aren't the same.
But, you know, and Aikman's...
Boo-boo. That's what I meant. The stats don't matter.
But
that's the thing.
Elway and Marino were the top two quarterbacks to ever play the game for the longest time. And then Peyton came along. Brady came along. Favre came along. Rodgers came along. Brees came along. And you have this last few decades, probably 2 decades, where you have unbelievable Hall of Fame talent at the quarterback position that made you just totally forget about these other quarterbacks. But I'd rather have the leader Elway was. I'd rather have the leader that Montana was over the stats that Brees has and the stats that Rodgers has.
Yeah.
And I personally would rather have that. That's why one of those things, like you brought his name up, so I'll say it, Aikman. Aikman was a leader. Aikman was you can say it, he was a game manager.
Yeah.
But he's the only game manager that ever won 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Okay? And 3 and 4 years. And he could have probably won more if that team didn't fall apart. You know,
well, I was just saying. I meant like statistically. Like what I wanted to compare was how much the league has changed. If you were to take just Aikman and get rid of his titles and take Phillip Rivers and put them side by side, you're picking Phillip Rivers' stats, but you don't realize they're 20 years apart. But at the same time, at the time, what Aikman was doing was kind of subpar. Honestly, his numbers, even when he played, I looked up every game stats.
If you put Marino or Elway in the NFL today,
they'd have 5,000-yard seasons every year.
Every year.
I know they would.
Without question.
But you know what would happen, in my opinion, I mean this nicely, if you put Aikman in the league these days, you know what he would be? Eli Manning.
Maybe.
The amount of interceptions he threw, the amount of, but Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowls as well. Game manager. He won Super Bowls, but he didn't have the flashy stats.
Right.
What I'm saying is, that's why I never bring up ever Aikman in a greatest quarterback of all time conversation, because he didn't play that well. He was just good enough to get it done, whereas you take Brady, you take these guys, Elway, Montana, I'm thinking of his name, Marino, didn't win a Super Bowl, obviously, but like these guys were just different. They were a different cut of breed, and unfortunately you don't have that same breed today where people are like, well, Aaron Rodgers is great, but is he a leader? Like, does he make everyone around him better? Does he get them to that next step? I'm not here to deny his arm skill, because if I had the opportunity to replace anybody's arm with Rodgers, you'd be stupid not to say you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like,
I'm not saying Rodgers and Brees aren't great. I'm not saying that.
Exactly.
But I'm just saying that if you're a top 5 all-time quarterback, you need to have gotten there more than once.
You have it. You have to have it.
And I don't care if you've only won one. but get there more than once.
Yeah, you have to have
and
I guess the proper would be like, you have to have the juice. Like, you had to have done this where you can say, look, the Super Bowl, that's my thing.
Right.
That's my thing.
I already put Mahomes over those two because he's gotten there.
Yeah.
Every year, you can only judge off 3 years right now.
Yeah.
But every year he's gotten there. Like, he got to the AFC Championship game.
He won a Super Bowl, then
he
got
won
to
a
another
Super Bowl, and then he got to another Super Bowl. And that's why I just.
So let me ask you this question then: is not Phillip Rivers? I'm sorry. Well, we could throw him in there. Why not? Is Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, and Drew Brees, is their talent that we, in quotations, I'm doing quotation, guys, their talent that we perceive, is it because of fantasy football? Does that make sense?
Not Brees and Rodgers.
Not Brees and Rodgers? Okay.
No.
Because the reason I asked, you said Mahomes in the 3 years have done more. Do we still talk about Rodgers and Brees like that because they're just putting up 5,000 yards but losing in the first round every year? Like, Rodgers hasn't been there since I was in middle school.
Yeah, but we talk about it as it's. So I look at it, and you always say, so whenever we talk about, quarterbacks and stuff like that, and we argue how this, that, the other thing, you bring up how, when we bring up Dak, you say it's a team game. Okay? How is the team constructed around you? Okay? And for me, Phillip Rivers always had a squad.
I always thought his team was always good. He had one of the best tight ends of all time. And great running back.
Aaron Rodgers, I feel, made the players around him better. I really do.
I would agree.
I think Jordy Nelson wouldn't have had the career he had if it wasn't for him. Randall Cobb. I'm even going to throw in there Devontae Adams right now. You don't know what his career would look like without...
Who was the tight end they had for a while?
I can't remember.
Was that Nelson? Nelson wasn't tight end.
No. It was always wide receivers. They never really had a tight end for Rodgers.
I'm thinking of somebody. But
running backs, they had Lacey. They have Jones.
They never really had anybody till Jones.
And so I'm looking at it as Aaron Rodgers made everybody on that team better. Yep. Okay? And the defense failed them sometimes.
A couple times.
Rodgers didn't, the guys that he would make better maybe didn't have good games in the big games.
And maybe when they lost those games, did Rodgers have 500 yards, but the defense allowed 500? Is that that you got to look at all those things too?
Drew Brees. Yeah. I take Drew Brees. I look at it as Drew Brees didn't necessarily make the people around him better. And I think I'm a little bit harder on Brees than most people. Great player, but I would take Rodgers over Brees.
I probably would too.
And everything. And, that's why I've always said to you about Dak. And I'll bring Dak into this equation because he is ranked the top 4 in quarterback. He was top 4 or 5 at quarterback. And
which I don't agree with, but
but again, it is what it is. I'm not saying that's your rankings or that's ESPN. That's the NFL's rankings because that's the NFL coaches.
That's what they do.
Ranking. My thing is this: is the squad he has around them. He has around him. He doesn't make them better. They're already supposedly good. Whereas, that's why I always say, do we overrate the players on the Cowboys every year?
Probably.
Or do they underperform? And in my opinion, if you have players that underperform, the quarterback is the leader.
Of course.
And the quarterback that's why, Aikman, I give Aikman all the credit. If you think about those teams that he was on, there was a bunch of egos. There was a bunch of prima donnas. There was a bunch of people that would give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball, and he held it all together.
But I will say, and I'll let you finish. I will say that with those 3 Super Bowl teams in 4 years, they had multiple on 2 hands I can count defensive Hall of Famers.
Yes,
it does make a difference.
But what I'm saying is
I know
Aikman was
he
the reason
tamed the
why
team.
They stayed a team because of him. He led them. And yes, he led them by handing the ball off and saying, don't worry, I'll get you the ball, but let's play the offense. He led that squad. And that's why I look at, Peyton Manning made people around him better.
Well, see,
there's people that are Hall of Famers that probably shouldn't be because of Peyton Manning.
Well, what I was going to add in that was was Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. You actually beat Peyton Manning to me there. I was going to add that you have 2 quarterbacks here that Tom Brady, for many years, was the best player on the team. Same thing with Peyton Manning, but that doesn't mean the players around him weren't good. He made everyone around him better.
Right.
Does that make sense? So could you imagine, and I just want to use this example, and again, I think to me, maybe I'm being a homer, Dak is a top 10 quarterback, right around 7 or 8, where I had him last year until the injury. I'd probably move him down. Some quarterbacks have done good. But let's take Tom Brady, for example, here. Put him on Dallas's offense. What happens?
They win a Super Bowl.
They win a Super Bowl. I agree, 100%. That's why Tom Brady's in my top 5 and not Dak Prescott. There's a leadership difference, and can Dak maybe be that guy? I don't know. It's still 25 years old. You don't know yet, but you want to see the signs. Maybe I got my blue glasses on. I see small flashes, but I want to see more.
But see, like in that, where do you see small flashes? Like that, he hasn't beaten teams with winning records. But again, I take it back all the time too. What are you doing when your team is down by 2 or 3 scores? Are you bringing them back? Do you have other games where you've thrown 2 interceptions in the first quarter and you come back to have a perfect second half and you win that game? But it's not always against the best teams. But then I did go back and do the honors, and I would love to do it for the show and do it again, is go back and look at a lot of the losses we had. Who else wasn't doing their job? And that's the hardest part about ranking people, is he can't do everything. Right. But the thing is the whole thing we've just been talking about, the only person that doesn't apply to when you're talking about quarterbacks is Dak to you. Because we talk about all this stuff, but we don't say what's around them. And I'm saying that it doesn't matter. Brady's had top defenses, and they've won. Brady's had not top defenses, and they won. Brady's been a game manager, and they won. But he's a leader. He will look at the top defensive player, and like in the NFC Championship game. One of the top defensive players on the team was crying that they won the NFC Championship team, and he looked right at him. And he goes, "What the fuck are you crying for?"
Yeah.
He goes, "We haven't done shit yet."
Yeah.
That's what it takes. Like it's a team game,
and you have to remember too. Tom Brady's cut just from a different breed.
But that's the thing.
Yeah,
like but you're paying these quarterbacks to be that. And it's not just Dak that's getting paid. It's going to be Lamar that's going to be getting paid soon. Josh Allen's going to be getting paid soon. Baker's going to be getting paid soon.
Yep.
And so I'm even going to say Herbert's going to be getting paid soon.
Yeah.
If he has another season like he's having, you've got to like he had his rookie year. You got to start talking that extension already. And like for me, it's just like, what are you paying them for?
I think. I could probably answer this because it's a problem that bothers me. 1, pay too much. But I think 2, what you're dealing with is and this is stupid, but I think you're paying quarterbacks for what they can put in your basket. Does that make sense? You're paying for what you want them to be, not for what they are. That's the same thing I even said. I said, why are we paying this man this much money when he hasn't done anything? He hasn't proven that he's worthy of a top 2 contract in the league, right? Is he worthy of being right around better than a quarter of the league, 2 quarters of the league? Sure. But why are you paying these quarterbacks this kind of money? Herbert hasn't done anything. Great year. Josh Allen, honestly, really hasn't done a lot either. He's made it deep, but he hasn't taken that next step. People are like, well, he has, Tom Brady the 1 year and Patrick Mahomes. That's not an excuse. Like, you have to get past these humps. Same thing I used years ago with the non-Dez catch. No excuse. Like, you should not have been in that situation.
It wasn't a catch.
I'm using an example.
I know. I'm just saying it wasn't a catch.
I know you. I know. I understand.
Okay.
It was a catch. So the point is, the point I would say is I think I'm going to use Dallas, for example, because this bothers the hell out of me. I don't think in Jerry Jones's 81-year-old life, I don't think he cares about winning a Super Bowl. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he does. And a lot of people will argue that, and you may have an argument for it, and that's fine. I've watched Dallas long enough now in my lifetime to know that if you care about winning, and you're worth $10+ billion as himself, not just the team, himself is worth billions, why haven't you gotten it done? Are you putting the wrong pieces together? Wrong head coaching? Do we blame Garrett? Now we're blaming McCarthy. I do it. We blame the defense. But at what point do we start looking internally and blaming more people than this? But I'm not.
But the owner is also the G. Like, he's drafting the players.
He does everything.
But when you look at it, everybody, and they're doing it again this year.
Yeah.
They're saying Dallas is going to win the NFC East.
So annoying.
And why? Because the offense, they have this. The defense is
it hot clock yet?
and my thing is this. It's like, okay, but
it's annoying.
You're overrating the players.
You're overrating them from the start.
If and like you're guilty of it too. Like, the 3 guys we drafted, they're all going to be better. And it's like, How? Like,
we don't know yet.
It's, and I just look at it as like
Micah Parsons could be nobody, just like in a nice way. Jamar Chase could tear his neck, like his ACL this week.
Yeah.
We don't. It's hard to say that that's the change, but again, as a fan, and the guys do it, you do it. You bring in somebody new, a new player that has a decent track record, or a new coach that was a great coordinator somewhere else. You get hyped, and sometimes we overvalue these players. Like, that's why I did my pre-draft, the pre-rankings, and I didn't have Dallas. They were at 16th. Now, does ESPN, do you know where ESPN had them today? Winning the division, 12 wins. That's nuts. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen with a defense like that. And that's part of when we get to the hot clock thing, like that's part of my conversation here is like, this is an aggravating topic it's bothered me for years about just pre-rankings, overhyping players, and...
Since you brought it up, bring it in.
So, what I was going to talk about is how much this bothers me.
So just so you know, we're going to the hot clock.
Okay. So I'll do my hot clock now. What bothers me the most is that with zero evidence, zero stats, zero skills to back up any of these claims they always do, why we even bring up teams' rankings before the season starts. This is coming mainly from ESPN and those people. Why do we do it? Why are we saying that Dallas is the odds-on favorite to win the NFC? Not even the NFC East, the NFC. Why do they do this? Because what happens is something I have to deal with. You bastards. I got to deal with y'all because every time it gets posted saying, look what they did to Dallas. Hans, what do you think? What do you want me to tell you? I think it's stupid. I'm unfortunately part of a team that gets so much love, disrespect, poo-pooed on, and loved at all exactly the same time. Because they have Jerry Jones, they have money, they have the star. I get it, and it's annoying as hell being a fan. Yes, I talk about Dak. Yes, I talk about Zeke. I do defend my players. But at the same time, can we play one game before we get ranked the 7th best team in the league? Please? Like, this is just my rant. It bothers me when I scroll through Facebook and I see another Dallas supporter saying, guys, defense, spectacular, looking great in practice and pre-training camp. It's training camp. Anything looks good. Put my high school team out that looks better than what we had last year on defense. Okay, maybe not. But my point is I get aggravated. I don't talk about it much, but I get very aggravated when Dallas is talked about every single day of every single night when the people we should be talking about is teams that were on the rise better than we were last year. Let's talk about the Bengals' improvement from 1 year. We should be talking about the Browns' improvement over 1 year. Let's talk about what Mahomes is going to do in year 4. Is he mad? Let's talk about Herbert's progression. I have other things to worry about. No offense to my team, who they love to talk about because they get paid to talk about Dallas. It's annoying. And all it does is create more arguments because Stephen A. Smith likes to get involved. Other people like to get involved, and they love this Dallas shit. And honestly, as a fan, it's annoying because do you want my honest opinion of Dallas? They're a subpar team. Until I see better. I don't know what to expect this year. Is Dak going to snap his ankle in the first game? I have no idea. They say he looks good. He's got J's on his feet. What the hell does that mean? I know what it means. But, like, does that make him better? Is he going to win 6 titles now? Probably not. So my rant was mainly it was actually funny we talked about Dallas right there at the end because that was what my hot clock was about, was that I don't know if DC fans experience this. You don't as a Bengals fan because you have 5 fans. But in general, it's
fucked up, man. Like, why you always gotta, like, I don't bring up the Bengals ever, and you always just crap on them. Like,
I love it. Rent-free, man. I'm rent-free.
All right.
No, but the reason I was saying this was that I just get very aggravated as a fan. Even in any sport, you have a popular team. If you're a big Lakers fan, happens every year. Odds-on favorite to win the title. They could lose in the first round. Yeah. I know they're trying to do rankings to get hype and get money. It probably a lot has to do with sports betting. I guarantee you that's what a lot of this has to do. Even top 10 quarterback rankings has something to do with money betting. But at the end of the day, it's like as soon as they post something, I go, here goes the people. Here goes the Dallas fans going, Super Bowl or bust, baby. And I'm like, stop. Like, it's annoying. So now that I'm sweaty because it's like 115 degrees in this podcast. It's so hot in here. Do you have a hot clock, Mark?
Yeah, my hot clock is I don't know how ESPN works. Because you fire people for speaking their opinions.
Oh, God.
And they're not racist. Mm-hmm. They're not anything. It just doesn't work with Disney, or they're not popular and you've been looking for a reason to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And then you have 2 talking heads, Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins. And Kendrick Perkins, in my opinion, is the worst NBA analyst to ever speak. Besides maybe Paul Pierce, because Pierce was an idiot too. But Kendrick Perkins literally in a 2-day span called the Milwaukee Bucks the dumbest team to ever make the NBA Finals.
Yep.
And then the next day say, hey, they really were motivated. They rallied around their coach. And he backtracked and he just said opposite. Stephen A. Smith said one of the most racist things I've ever heard come out of somebody's mouth. But since it wasn't about, black people, white people, or anything, it was about Asians. What is he, Japanese? Shohei Ohtani?
Ohtani, I think he's Japanese.
Japanese. He said, you can't have him be the face of baseball because you don't understand what he's saying. You need an interpreter to understand what he's saying. If anybody ever said anything about an African-American player saying they can't be the face of the franchise because of the way they speak,
I know.
Stephen A. Smith would call for that person's head.
And I will tell you that happened. That did happen in an analyst by the name of Will Kane. That's why he's not there. He mentioned
I look at it and like one of those things, like, because it even bothered me because when Lamar Jackson came out and he was drafted, a couple people said, like, we can't understand what he's saying. He's talking, he doesn't talk right. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't talk right? Like, just let the man, like, yeah. I base him not off of how he speaks or what he's like off the field. I talk about him based off what he's on the field.
Yeah.
And if Shohei Ohtani is the best player on the baseball field right now, he's the face of baseball, and he should be. Because if you're baseball, you want globalization.
You do.
You want those fans.
Especially because it's a worldwide sport.
Japanese fans are probably the most hardcore fans for baseball.
Probably.
And you're getting more people to watch tonight the All-Star game, which I know you guys will hear this Friday, but we're going to post this Friday. But on Tuesday, we're doing this, and the All-Star game is tonight, and more people will watch this because of what this man's going to do tonight.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, being able to say whatever you feel like to get clicks or to get views or to see that headline of what this... No, to me, what Stephen A. Smith did is a fireable offense.
I know.
And he should be either suspended or fired. But instead, ESPN just allows him to do whatever the hell he wants. And it bothers the hell out of me because I even said it like multiple times, and the most likes I've ever had on a post on ESPN.
I saw it.
And I'm like, whoa, people are, hey, look at me. I'm trending.
I know, look at you. You're going to get a blue check mark before you know it.
And I just don't understand why ESPN allows this, and these people are on their station a lot. Like Kendrick Perkins is talking about basketball, and this man doesn't even know basketball to talk basketball, and he doesn't know other sports to talk other sports, and they have him on TV, and they just bring up these two, and it bothers me. It really sets me off because, one, I don't think any race should ever be disparaged or anybody should ever talk bad about anybody. If you don't, back in the day, people, if you don't speak well, you don't speak well. There's people that could be, what if he stuttered?
Yeah.
Instead, would you say he can't be the face of the franchise because he stutters?
No.
So they have an interpreter right there that's going to do it for us and say something. I don't care. Like, it's mind-boggling. But then in the same sentence, he's like, baseball needs to do more for black athletes.
Yeah.
And baseball needs to do more for America because there's more Dominican players, there's more Puerto Rican players, there's more Japanese players.
Than any other race in baseball.
And yes, there's a lot of white players in baseball. I will say that. But there is probably more Dominican and Puerto Rican and Japanese players than there are white players. And baseball is just, so you want to do more to get everybody playing. Don't do more just to get this athlete or that athlete playing.
So I don't always respond to the hot clocks like the way you do about Seattle. But the reason I want to respond to this because this is something that's bothered me for months, and I always say, well, that's how ESPN is. You guys have heard me say it for time and time again. It's because I didn't want to go into this conversation. I'm not going to go deep. It's our podcast. We don't get like that. But I don't want to use the P word, so I'm going to try to steer away from this. But why ESPN does this? The P word? Politics.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what this is. That's what everything about. Even this podcast, everything we do in life is about that word now. It wasn't 30 years ago, but everything you say is scrutinized. I did a little bit of research, and it actually happens, I told you, from Will Kane, somebody I listen to every day, who actually had his slot replaced when he got left by ESPN by Max Kellerman, one of the biggest idiots on ESPN, in my opinion. He got replaced, and that's fine. But he left, and he started his own podcast. Yes, he works for a mainstream news company. He is a news anchor, and people don't like that. That's fine. I don't agree with his opinion either. I don't even like the company he's with, but he has his own podcast. He free thinks. He talks sports. It's unfilterable. And he mentioned something really important the other day, and anybody who hears this, I'd love to hear their comment. Mark, I want you to comment too. Will Kane said when he was working with ESPN, there was 900 employees in the building and across the United States and other buildings. Remember they used to do coast to coast?
Yep.
So there's more than one ESPN building, and he said he was the only one who had one word to say slightly different than everyone else about Colin Kaepernick's situation. I'm not here to argue whether that's in the past. We all know who he is. He said, I was the only one that I worked with that said, I thought it was disrespectful he did that. 911 other employees said, Will, you're being a little bit of the R word right now. And he said, how come there's 900 plus of us from different walks of life, colors, races, religions, political views, but you're all the same? And he left ESPN when they told him to leave, along with Golick, one of the Golicks, and what was the other dude from like Dan Le Batard's show, I think, or somebody. Yeah. A couple of these people, and even one of the reasons I think Dan Patrick was one of the ones that got scrutinized. I don't know if he was with ESPN at the time, but someone like him, another one was like, we left because our views to the world seemed offensive, but at the same time, do they not want conservative voted people on there? Maybe. That's Will Kane, for example. But then you also have people like Will Kane, Stephen A. Smith, who's the spitting opposite of a Will Kane. But he gets to stay. Will Kane says, I think Lamar Jackson's not a very good quarterback. That takes it as he doesn't like black quarterbacks. But Stephen A. Smith says exactly what you said the other day, because he doesn't speak English. That's a blatantly racist comment. Mm-hmm. And it bothers me. That's why I always tell on the podcast, I don't watch ESPN. That is exactly the reason why I don't support a company with, and I'm going to say the word, communistic views, where you don't allow people to be free thinkers. As long as they're not spewing racism, let them talk. Let these players be open and honest. Let these sports anchors actually tell people how they feel about Sha'Carri Richardson. Most of us agree. That's a stupid rule that she can't be there right now. But it's a rule nonetheless. Because you say it's a rule doesn't mean you hate the color of her skin. I'm an American. I love the Olympics. I want her running and winning gold medals for us. But you can't break the rules either way. But if I said this, it doesn't look good. Stephen A. Smith can say it all day long. And that's where I think your point is taken, where people are like, why is it like this? It's like this because they want to appease to the masses. And people are like, well, why did you start a sports podcast with your father-in-law? I like talking sports with him, but I hate hearing politics in my sports. Yeah. I hate it. And people are like, well, the basketball players should do it. LeBron James can do what he wants. I'm going to add that. LeBron James said, please stop the Asian hate. Dude, your shoes are made by Asian slave laborers, though. You can't have your cake and eat it, too. You have to understand words have a lot of repercussions behind what you say. And you're not making people like you. You can keep talking, but understand there's repercussions. As Stephen A. Smith, you're losing fans. You used to love First Take. You can't go 5 minutes without going, did he really say that? Did he really say that on TV and still gets to keep his job? But other anchors have lost their job for way worse. Yeah. There's a female thing happening right now. I don't know the two girls' names about.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't read into it much.
But
I know it had something to do with race as well. And I was like, ESPN, they have to get their life together here because.
But it wasn't about race.
I think somebody made it about that, right?
It was more about. It happened to be a white woman versus a black woman, but it wasn't. The comment wasn't racial.
It wasn't.
It was more of. It shouldn't have been said, but it was said behind closed doors, and somebody taped it without her knowing and put it out there.
So they broke the law.
Like that's where we're at these days, though. Is people are stabbing you in the back, like you have no friends at all.
And just because you believe something that isn't what someone else believes doesn't mean they hate you. That's what people have to remember.
And I don't care about people's opinions. People's opinions can be their opinions.
They're like assholes. Everybody has one.
I could care less. It's when you contradict yourself and or you're blatantly doing what you speak out against.
Exactly that.
And that's where I'm at. Now, I've said some really stupid things in my life.
We all have.
And, I probably have said some stupid things on this podcast. People might look at me like Eagles fans. Logan's friend thinks I'm an idiot because I called them the Eagles a dumpster fire. And a couple people, don't think I'm right on Russell Wilson, my opinion there. And I'll argue that till I'm, till
Blue
I'm
in the
dead.
face,
Until he's gone, I'm going to tell you that Russell Wilson isn't a top 3 quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
But I will base it off my argument, and I don't really waver off of that.
No.
And
No, you're
I
consistent.
took some heat last year in the first 5-6 games of the season. He looked like he was the MVP and the most dirtiest quarterback to ever play the game. And then he was a top 10 quarterback and barely made the playoffs. So it's just, like Nate, Logan, Chandler. I mean, you've witnessed this. Those guys and I, like when I lived over that way and we were all hanging out every day, and even in the group chat, even when we're doing live fantasy drafts and talking, like we've gotten into some heated arguments over our opinions, and like sometimes it gets personal. And you and Nate have gotten personal. Where
I think it's me and Nate have very similar traits. That's why we butt heads.
But at the end of the day, we then accept, okay, you know what? We got out of hand there a little bit.
Yeah.
The next day we're joking around.
Yeah.
And but we've come to accept each other's opinions. We don't agree with, me and you could argue for 24 straight hours about
something.
About the Cowboys, Dak, and, about the NFC. I could argue with the other guys about Washington.
Yeah.
And, we could argue all day and never get anywhere.
But see, this is the problem. When I first started watching First Take, and I want to go back to that real quick because this brought it right to my attention, the friend group. When I first got invited into this group, there was arguments, there was debates, and a couple times there was that P word I mentioned earlier in the chat, and I was like, I don't really know the waters to tread here, you know what I mean? But with First Take, wasn't First Take a show about debate?
Yeah.
They brought these issues, sports, racial, political, biased issues. I'm going to go down the list. And you know why they brought in Will Kane? Because he was the only one different than everyone else. And these opinions were great. They argued back and forth why they took a knee, why they didn't, brought in facts, education. And somebody like me who had no idea why learned so much from them two arguing 2 different points. And at the end of the day, they still share each other's tweets on Facebook, and they still go to the show the next day because they respect each other.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying Will Kane doesn't have a job because of Stephen A. Smith. I'm saying what's happening is just because we can do it, the sports world and our entire world needs to do that.
Yeah.
Just because people don't agree sports-wise, education-wise, religion, gender, sex-wise, it doesn't mean they don't like you. They're just a different person.
Yeah.
Just respect the person. For example, I have nothing but respect for Stephen A. Smith. I just wish at times he would be a little bit more honest to what he says.
I've lost all respect for him.
Okay, I wasn't going to go there, but yes, I have.
but
I would like to see him just preach what he, if you're going to stop a certain issue, don't be part of the issue. That's my only thing. And for people who that still watch their show, I hope they have a strong stomach because I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought that up because it was something that's bothered me for a while. I know we said we don't want to bring up a whole lot of controversial stuff, but I think it's good to talk about this because I think there's a lot of people that agree with this issue about ESPN that don't watch it, and now they listen to us because we're awesome.
Yeah, well,
we do our best.
Yeah. So, but next week we'll talk about probably more fantasy football.
Yeah.
It's getting down to the nitty gritty where you're probably about a month away
from your drafts.
From drafts, we're about a month and a half away from the season.
I'm ready for some football, dude.
It's coming fast. The NBA Finals might be over the next week.
Yep.
It might not. Second half of baseball will be starting, but it's this is the time of year where I don't pay attention to baseball. I'll look at the rankings, and that's about it.
Well, that's why we kind of did this open episode today because there's really not a lot going on. Really isn't.
There isn't. You have
that we're too interested in. I know some.
Yeah,
people.
The Olympics is coming up, but no fans at the Olympics.
Yeah,
that's heartbreaking for these people because these athletes, 90% of them. This is their
only probably Olympics. Some of them
either their only Olympics or this is their only time to shine.
Yep.
And it's heartbreaking. Like I look at somebody like the U.S. women's gymnastics, filthy. They're filthy. Mm-hmm. The women's soccer team, filthy for the U.S. And
no one's going to get to watch it.
You're only going to watch it on TV, but they're not going to have those fans. Like those fans, like if you watch the Euro Cup for soccer. Those fans are rabid. Those fans are invested. And that's what I like. That's the kind of sports that I love. I love watching, European, like that Euro Cup. Like you saw countries traveling and invested in their country,
and you're going to see that.
But you're you're not going to see that at
Not
the
at
Olympics.
the Olympics. I was thinking you'll see that in the football season this year.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, that's why this football season is going to be, again,
So
it's going to
exciting.
be different because it's going to be more exciting. The fans are going to be back. The noise is going to be back. And that makes a huge difference.
Like
in
the
football.
biggest difference. Yeah.
So I love it and everything, but it's, for me, my heart breaks for these Olympians because they're not able to have their country there cheering for them, and
them.
or you're when you come home you'll get that hero welcome, but there's just something about probably standing on that podium, listening to your national anthem, and then hearing the applause and the cheers and everything like that. That is what is. That's what these guys train for, and they're not going to get that. And it's sad, but
it's very sad.
That's where we're at. But other than that, everybody, if you have something you want us to talk about, hit us up, let us know, and we can. And other than that, everybody have a good week.
Everybody have a good weekend.